Alright, I guess it's a comments video. It could be some other kind of video, but we'll see how it goes. Yeah, just people are insane, and that's all there is to it. It's, people are really stupid and really obnoxious and completely intellectually dishonest, and it's just the way it is. People suck. So anyway, speaking of the holiday. 2030 approximately. What I said was we can set it up so we get. Yes, so what? You drew a picture of it, and you're making the assertion that one theory can't explain something and another theory can. First, your premises were insane. You started talking about multiple photons, as if somehow the experiment was about multiple photons interfering with each other. There's no evidence that photons, I'll say it again, that ever in all of science there's no evidence of one photon interfering with another photon. There's only evidence, suggestion of evidence, that single photons have something called a wave function, and that wave function allows them to interfere essentially with a copy of themselves. Now that's the only thing that's been speculated to be quantum mechanics. So you have to call it something other than quantum mechanics if you're claiming some other event took place here. So show me how your wave functions, where it starts in this experiment and where it stops. I mean, I'll go back to the drawing. I mean, he's just such a liar. His video was clearly suggesting all kinds of things, and clearly they can't be possible by his own science, and yet he's retracting it somehow and saying, no, I said some special setup. So you're doing a For Dummies video where you lie essentially about everything because you don't show the setup. You didn't show any lenses in here or any other things that create this special circumstance. You didn't ever call it a pattern of light. Nothing. And you're claiming it was a For Dummies video that's this deceptive, that has this many missing elements in it. No, that's for liars. That's a For Liars video. It's not a For Dummies video. So again, he has no wave function explanation. Do the photons engage their wave function when they go through the first time? And so this is the wave function that travels back to the mirror, and the wave function travels back here again, and somehow the photon's wave function allows it to interfere with itself on this path, but it doesn't interfere with itself on this other path because it doesn't go there, of course, the wave function. So it has to be other photons interfering with their own wave function in this other path. So how do the photons in this path know that they're supposed to be opposite of the wave function of the photons in this path? Your quantum mechanics does not explain this experiment at all. Draw me a picture of the waves interfering. Show me where the waves interfere with themselves. Show me where they're created. Again, there's no Huygens here. There's no Heisenberg here from your definition. You won't even acknowledge that it's a diffraction gradient and that the beam is diverging as it goes through, and that the two paths have opposite, very different divergent patterns. You're not even admitting a single one of the absolute facts of this experiment. You fucking lying piece of shit. I mean, I just can't believe you can be this obnoxious in the face of your own ignorance. Ugh. All right. A point that you admitted earlier in the video. No such thing happened. Okay. Yes, you could set up any experiment. You could put Donald Duck in there to block the light, and then you could have Daffy Duck holding a Zooper Dooper Nooper, and he could be doing something else to the light. Yeah, you can set it up to do anything. I never conceded that any such setup. What I conceded is that if you block one of the paths, you get 50-50 light coming back. That's all I conceded, and the rest of it I said there's a fucking pattern, which I might as well show. I think it's here. Yeah. So, first off, this pattern isn't round. Second of all, as I pointed out, you can clearly see it diminishes with distance, which makes it look a lot like a raindrop or something. You know, some other mechanism that's creating the pressure changes that gets weaker and weaker and weaker. So it has no resemblance in its actual mathematical and mechanical proportions to the double slit experiment. It isn't that experiment. And let's move it through time. And what you'll notice, I have it slowed down a little, is that it never goes completely dark in the center. See? The ring just disintegrates in the center. The center never goes completely dark. The center always is light. There's never a completely dark center. So again, I've been pointing out how there's a ton of complexities to this experiment, and this asshole keeps making 4 dummies videos, kind of claiming that somehow it's all so fucking obvious and so fucking simple. Well, it's obviously not. It's a complex experiment, and these lying sacks of shit who don't have explanations, who haven't even demonstrated their own theory explains this fucking bullshit, are sitting there saying, well, hey, why don't you explain every detail of this experiment for me? So he makes a 4 dummies video and then expects me to reply with an elaborate construction of exactly every detail of every phenomenon that's taking place in every mirror and in every beam splitter and in every projection of a laser beam. And yes, I could speculate about why this pattern degrades proportionally, that obviously the most intense light is hitting the beam splitter in one spot all the time. The laser beam is shooting right at the beam splitter all the time. And so this is actually the intensity pattern that's built into the interferometer itself, into the beam splitter, in terms of the reflective index of the beam splitter. This is the pressure being created in the glass, which is technically a fucking liquid, by the way. Oh, man. I mean, you people are just such scum. So yes, I can develop a theory, but the argument is you're the one making the claims that particles can't explain this when you haven't fucking explained how your wave function travels through this fucking experiment. You lying sack of shit. People are just incredible fucking cunts. Alright, somehow you managed to be blind to the clear assertion and caveat, we set it up. So I can't believe he sits here. I could replay your video. Is that what you really want me to do? You want me to play it again? And you make these bold assertions. There's streams of photons, and you know, we could set it up and we get no light here and light here. And then you say that 1 minute, and then you say, well, no, there's an even amount of light when we block one of the slits. One of the paths. Your video is incoherent rubbish. Anyway, yes, we use a lens to do so. So, where was your lens in the drawing? It's not that fucking hard to make a little thing for lens, just like you make little things for mirrors and for beam splitters. And my whole point of the lens argument. So back to the drawing board. Move that one up. You know, the whole point of what I was talking about with this divergence is that's exactly what gets you in a little bit of trouble, because you can diverge depending on how big your mirror is. You can diverge right over your mirror. You can diverge right over the beam splitter. And the point would be is if you have a lens collecting the signal, then yes, your lens will be sitting here to receive light, but your signal is like this, on, off, on, off, on, off. And you're only going to get in the lens one tiny portion of the signal. And so this is how you do a 4 dummies video, is to just leave out all these important details. You know, you're going to explain how it really works by not explaining how it really works. By doing exactly the opposite, by misleading and providing misinformation. And you call that doing honorable science. But it isn't important to the question, can particles and charges and changes in the length, in the leg length, well, again, you're still saying there's some sort of leg length change when you're just moving a mirror, you know, vibrating a mirror even. It only takes a twist in the mirror. Or blockage cause changes at the image splitter. Well, again, blocking the entire portion of the light isn't exactly a change. That's more radical than using the same word as change when you're moving the distance of the mirror and when you completely block all of the light. To use the same word for those things and call those both something called a change is kind of bullshit, you know. Extreme bullshit, you know. Um, and Our blockage cause changes at the image splitter. Yeah. So again, so you say the word at the image slash splitter. So again, why don't you explain? Why don't you show me? You think it's an interference pattern. Show me where the two waves, the wave functions from one photon. Show me where those two wave functions interfere with each other and make the photon go to some probabilistic location. Why don't you show me in this experiment how your wave theory, how the quantum mechanical wave theory, the Heisenberg-Huygens wave theory explains this experiment before you make an experiment saying, you other guys can't explain it. No, your obligation, if you're going to make that claim, is to say you have an explanation. Show me your explanation. Fucking cunt. And then he has the, I don't know what this fucking means. Where is your video reply? You posted a comment on it, you fucking insane kook. I mean, can you be this fucking inarticulate in terms of composing questions and ideas where... What the fuck am I supposed to think this means? Where is your video reply? Colon, quote, particle interferometry for dummies, question mark. I don't really understand. I just made it, asshole. I just played your entire fucking video, asshole. I pointed out first how you're talking about multiple photons when quantum mechanics has nothing to do with two individual photons interfering with each other. So your whole fucking premises were bullshit and had nothing to do with the theory you're attempting to fucking so lamely defend, you fucking liar. So yeah, fuck you. Make another video so I can, next time I won't be as gracious as I was in the last video response. I'll just point out how you're so fucking ignorant you don't know anything about this science, and yet you open your fucking gob and just spout this fucking arrogant shit. Alright, congratulations. Oh, this is kind of a positive comment, so we won't bother. Now this is, I think, a positive comment. It's very long, so I thought I would read it just because he typed a lot of shit. So, I didn't read it, but I'm sure there'll be some shit in it worth commenting on. So, yeah, got the right thing open. All right, Gary, I think you're a breath of fresh air in modern day physics that doesn't try to blind everyone with incomprehensible maths. Yeah, just incomprehensible ways of saying something very simple. So every fucking thing that's very simple, like explaining the inverse square law, or explaining the fact that proportional relationships, and that the probability is just a proportional, like 5% will do this, 10% does this, 20% does this. Yeah, so turning it all into convoluted abstractions that don't even have literal meaning. Call it a lambda and call it a theta and a delta. Don't even use words that have anything to do with exactly what the fuck the thing is. Yes, that does suck. Maths are you can never know explanations. You are articulate, clearly intelligent, and speak your mind, and if you think a certain hypothesis or principle is a crock of shite, you are not afraid to say so or even admit that you don't have the answer. Yeah, that's the irritating part is, again, as I've pointed out, I'm one man working for a few years on a theory and attempting to explain, covering all these different disciplines of physics. And they've had 100 fucking years and millions of scientists to rationalize their bullshit. And they expect my theory to be as deep in terms of the bullshit, in terms of rhetoric and gibberish and thought experiments, as what they can produce as a rationalization for their silly theory, their God theory. Yeah, and I've only had a few years to work on evolution. You sometimes misread things or misspell them, and I can get the wrong end of this and can get the wrong end of the stick. But you are human, and you are more than happy to admit you are not perfect and that you make mistakes, as we all do. Well, I just wish there was a concession that we all do it. So every time I say electron instead of proton or some other little catchy bullshitty mistake, these assholes think they've got evidence that I'm ignorant of these concepts. When I could do that to Dave, I could do that to Susskind, I could do that to every other physicist who talks physics and tries to explain something in any kind of fast and not incredibly boring manner. That yes, they're going to make mistakes, little crappy, meaningless mistakes. And you do not claim that you are superior or a mystery to the universe that I am supposed to believe quantum mechanics is. Well, I'm also not just sitting here saying that yes, this is some incredibly you have to be incredibly intelligent and incredibly this, incredibly that to understand why their theory is incoherent with their own theory. That their theory is incoherent with their own theory. That their ethers don't even have the same functions. That they would have consequential impact on each other. They don't account for. I mean, their theory is understandable as incomplete in a grotesque way. What I find astonishing is how rude, obnoxious, spiteful, and sometimes downright evil and the comments people make to your channel are, to the extreme of insulting your family heritage, mental stability, and even comparing you to Hitler. Yes, they're all fucking assholes. What the fuck is wrong with some people? No, it's a lot of people. What the fuck's wrong with a lot of people? If they don't agree with what you say, they can politely agree to disagree. Well, I'd rather they point out how they have some piece of evidence. Again, I wish they would link to solid evidence instead of the most obscure evidence on the internet. They say they've got the most proven theory in the history of mankind, and yet you ask them to prove it, and what do? They drag you to some fucking pagia obscuria in the middle of the nowhere zone of the internet and say, see, that's where our truth is. I mean, amazing. No, our professors don't speak it. Yes, the pop culture, pop science guys, they never talk about it. But we hide the truth over here in obscuria. I mean, it is just such bull fucking shit. Put forward a valid, coherent argument or simply fuck off and ignore you. Yeah, well, they're all petty animals defending. Like I said, there's some reason why they're horny for this magic theory of the universe. Somehow quantum mechanics gives them some sort of hope. It's the new God. That's all it is. It's the new God. I mean, that's why they jumped at the opportunity to call the Higgs boson the God particle, because they really want it so bad. How you abstract such, how you attract such vicious trolls is beyond me. But having experienced Stack Overflow as a programmer, I understand your pain. Yeah, those people are truly insane. I mean, you can't even suggest something like, well, could we actually have a disagreement and an argument and resolve an issue? No, we don't do that. We just all sit here and blowjob each other. Oh, I am simply someone trying to understand the world around me who is incapable of doing any of the math. However, I know when I smell a rat, and some modern physics appears to me at least to be a whole sewer of them. Yes, every single bit of it, unfortunately. I mean, it just reeks in Einstein's cobbled together mush, where he basically just took a bunch of hanging unfinished bits and smashed them together and said, how can I make all these bits that obviously, these puzzle pieces that obviously don't fit together, how can I just kind of smash them all together? And it just has the obvious look of a bunch of puzzle pieces that don't belong in each other, stuck together. I mean, you can see the patterning coherencies are all over the place. I want to genuinely thank you for your videos and time you take to make them, and the time you take to answer your comments, even if you get riled by them at times. Try to cut down on the fags. Yeah, I know. I gotta watch my language. I know. Look, I grew up in the '70s. It was just, that's how you got to, you wanted to fuck with some guy's head. You called him a fag. It was just too easy. I know they are no good for you. Oh, the fags, he means the cigarettes. Well, no, the ones you smoke now, especially at my age, they can't hurt you a bit. So it's the ones I smoked when I was 12. That's the one that's going to kill me. It's not the one I'm smoking now. Having quit 2 years ago after 36 years. Yeah, see, you've already fucked yourself. It's already been decided statistically that once you smoke more than 25 years, that is at least a pack and a half a day, for 25 years, you've already determined your fate, and that even if you quit, statistically, you won't live any longer than if you didn't quit. So the cigarette that kills you is the one the first stupid one. Again, I understand. No, I am not preaching, just imparting some wisdom I have learned from my own mistake of smoking from the age of 8. Yeah, well, you beat me, but yeah, it's not the kind of decision an 8-year-old should be making. That's for sure. Anyway, one thing I will say is I know you think modern science is an extension of religion. I don't really think that's what it is. I'm just saying clearly the human race can't let it go. They can't let the phantasmagorical answers go. So if you give them a choice, you flash these questions in front of them, they're going to keep picking the flashy, stupid, impossible thing. I want green water and I want this. They want everything to be something it's not. They want everything to be a perfect answer. They want all this bullshit, and that's clearly what happens. The scientists are no better. They have none of Newton's discipline, clearly. They're reaching for stars, and they're thinking of it as quantum candy. Where you use Darwin to discuss their idiocy, but I can think of a simulation hypothesis is a potential valid one that takes nothing away from your theories of understanding the environment we exist in, but does involve a creator, programmer, consciousness. Right, a consciousness is insane and out of its mind and in a straitjacket or in a lunar bin. I mean, what creates a system that kills 90% of all the children born in a malicious and brutal way before they even reach a year old? I mean, what creator does that? I mean, that's insane creation outside of confinement of this potential simulation. Yeah, so I'm just saying I don't think there's a chance in hell of coming up with a rational reason how anything that's reasonable or rational or sane and not psychotically the opposite of those things could create the world we exist in. I'm not interested in any biblical interpretations, and like you, do not think our universe, if created, is by a benevolent entity based on the suffering, evolution, nature, or the universe creates. Well, I'm just saying, why would the universe create intelligence that was stupid? So I'm just saying, there's no mechanism for creating stupidity. There's nothing in evolution that says, make the organism stupid. So there's nothing basically in the entire universe that could create a creative force of some kind. There's no mechanism to create a creating force, a sophisticated force, that would be willfully stupid and think trees were butterflies or that frogs were, magic unicorns or any of that crap. So the reasoning skills are so poor of this proposed matrix creator that it would have to be something nature couldn't even create as a monstrosity. But anyway, I don't want to get into this philosophy crap. Evil bastard, to put it mildly, or at the very least nonchalant. Well, that's just worse than that. No doubt, with its own selfish goals and agenda. But again, what would that be made out of? If it had selfish goals and agenda, then it would have to have knowledge of pain and suffering and pleasure, and then it would know these are valuable things, and there's no way it would waste them or squander them. So there's no way to make it logical. As Planck time and the quantized nature of particle physics is compared to binary mathematical code, it does suggest a potential computed world around us. It doesn't suggest anything. The only suggestion is that the universe is binary. Yes, that it has things in it, and they have properties, and they have very simple properties when you go all the way down of things like light. They go straight in a direction forever until they hit an electron. They don't do anything else. They just go the speed of light in a direction, and they don't change their direction or do any of that shit unless something makes them do it. And that's it. Yes, the universe is in that sense has a similarity to the on and off of a computer, but that similarity is so detached. Again, you're doing the same thing I'm blaming science for here. You're taking something very simple and you're trying to aggrandize it and make it a little bit special. Computer world around us. Do you agree? And does the potential for a creator have to negate your theory of everything? The potential of an insane creator, yes, negates all reason to the physical function of the universe. The universe would have to be non-binary and capable of blatant, the photon just all of a sudden goes the wrong way, insane change and preposterous lack of coherency to this obligation to create pattern by certain rules. Creating insanity but through rudimentary process would be impossible. You can only evolve it, and even evolution has huge balances against giving insane powers to control the entire universe to things like a frog. It just wouldn't happen because the frog would blow up the universe. Insane things couldn't possibly manage creation because they would create things that were totally unrealistic. It's like giving a 5-year-old God powers. They would do insanely stupid things that would just consume the whole universe and blow it up, including Darwin's theory of evolution. Okay, well, that was a little too philosophical, just letting you know. So he's the same guy. I enjoy this video very much and found it insightful and honest, something I am enjoying and respecting when watching your videos. Instead of the mainstream, it's too complicated and mysterious to understand. Common sense dictates by theory of probability, you are more likely to be correct than they are, as you have no infinities. Yes, and I actually have explanations, which I have to keep pointing out, that I'm the one actually giving you a mechanical explanation for why the Earth moves into the sun, and a mechanical force explanation for why one magnet moves into the other magnet where they are not, and why charges repel. I mean, yeah, I'm actually explaining the physics. Alright, so this is some other chimpery. So we time code again, useless rubbish. The double slit experiment is not minutia, and I don't know what context that's in, but anyway, and that was the point of my comment. It's minutia compared to the single slit. I'm still saying you're going to make this preposterous argument that you're conveniently given two slits when you have a wave function theory. Okay, and the two slits give you the ability to say one photon hits the two slits and creates two photons right down the middle. Now that's very convenient for creating wave interference. So you can write mathematics and it can work with this, and that's exactly what they do. So let's understand, that's exactly the theory proposed, is that one photon comes into the two slits, and the one photon makes a wave right down the middle of the two slits. That's their mathematical model. That's their statement of reality. Now clearly the single slit doesn't give you any of those kind of simple options of creating two waves. So now you have to come up with this preposterous Huygens-y bullshit theory that somehow the one wave goes in and it doesn't like being in a slit, and it somehow goes psychotic and multi-personality, and the two personalities decide to break in. I mean, it's completely impossible to come up with an interference diagram with a single photon that can't sound like absolute crap with a single slit. So that was my point, you fucking cunt, and I clearly made that point. You're not going to be very impressed if you're any kind of thinking person when you have the problem of the single slit sitting right there in front of you, and all of a sudden somebody shows up with a double slit. You're going to be like, I already got a big enough problem here. This one is monstrous. This one is so big. It's a lot bigger than that stupid one. Yeah, that one's easy. Okay, because I can make two photons really easy, because I can just pretend the photon went through both slits. God, you're such a dumbass. Anyway, you complain about time codes, but they link exactly to what you're saying. Well, yes, I made the video. I actually watch the videos after I make them. I don't need to watch it another fucking time for you, okay? Quote the fucking context. I'm reading a comment. I'm not going back to the video and then going back to the comment. You don't think that's fucking irritating as fuck? How exactly does somebody do that? You can't just, I can't, especially when I read comments in this part of, in my complete comment section, those links don't even work. So I have to go back to the original video and then find your time code. So by some, magical process, YouTube doesn't even display the comments unless you wait 3 minutes after you loaded the fucking video. You don't understand how this works in the real world, you cunt? And that I have better things to do my motherfucking time than spend actual minutes of my life just getting to your quote? I mean, fuck you. Anyway, Jesus. Just click them. Yeah, like that works on YouTube. If I'm in the comments section and I click on the actual video, if I was reading this comment on the actual video and the time code had some hope of actually working, right? Then I pop out of the comments section, I pop up to the video plays, and then I have to go all the way back down to the comments section again. I mean, fuck you. Fuck you. Yes, if you have a theory of everything, you make claims about, if you can't make videos and all you can do is comment, then yes, you sort of have an obligation to do it. All right? But I don't have an obligation to watch my own video again, shithead. God damn. And make claims about the true nature of photons. Let's see. Yes, if you have a theory of everything and make claims about the true nature of photons, then you need to answer the question. What question? What fucking question? Like, amazing bullshit. That's science. Yeah, what question, asshole, have I not answered? I'm the one who's answering the questions. You're the one not answering the questions. Why don't you explain why magnets attract? Why don't you explain why the Earth travels into the sun? Why don't you explain how a single photon fucking interferes with itself in the single slit experiment in any kind of rational way? Not creating a million tiny inconvenient wavelets to, no, not a million, an infinite number of tiny wavelets to interfere with each other. Fuck you. That's science. Yeah, that's bullshit. That's fucking religion. Physics has been wrestling with the double slit interpretation for decades. No, they haven't. They've established magic as the answer. Every single interpretation is magic. The photon has radar. The photon goes through the multiverse. Every single explanation is a complete unicorn pile of shit. They don't have one single rational interpretation of why it happens. One single mechanical interpretation. They don't even think the matter of the slits matters. It doesn't even matter where the photon goes. If it's heading for the edge of the slit, they're just going to mathematically move it to the middle. They don't care about any of the physical properties existing in the experiment. The physical properties of the experiment are irrelevant to your fucking physics, you fucking idiot. But you just dismiss it. I don't just dismiss it. I argue how it's preposterous fucking nonsense that it makes absolutely no fucking sense to think photons don't go close to the matter or far from the matter, and that's consequential because there's things called loose electrons around all of the matter. Yeah, I make an actual counter argument that there's a simple explanation that doesn't require the recreation of fake new universes, for fuck's sake. I don't have to create a whole fucking new universe. I don't have to create a whole fucking new kind of matter. I don't have to create a whole fucking new kind of fucking energy to answer questions like you assholes have to. You have to resort to your fucking leprechauns, your fairies, your pixies. That's all this bullshit is. That's all your wave function is. You might as well just call it fairy function. There is nothing physical in your fucking theory. It's all made out of invisible fields and invisible mechanisms and fucking godlike powers that fucking the simplest thing in the universe has. God, you're so full of shit. Anyway, your explanation is hand-waving nonsense. Bullshit. A fair mind can't see it as my explanation as anything but a huge fucking challenge to your goddamn drivelly, drooly nonsense of baby talk about your fantasy characters and the hobgoblins that are doing this. It's all made out of fucking Sasquatch. Your whole fucking science is made out of Sasquatch. Show the math. Oh, again, this resort to mathematics, which I have over and over. Wait, you want me to actually publish Maxwell's equations? You want me to write the inverse square law as my channel fucking icon? What do I have to do to explain to you that I love the formalization of proportional relationships, that I have nothing against most of the math and physics? What I'm talking about is the interpretations of what's causing the mathematical relationships. This is about Huygens and Heisenberg, jackass. Show me the math that is Huygens. Show me the math that is Heisenberg. Show me how you mathematically incorporate into anything through any other mechanism but creating variables, you jackass. Variables that exist in the real experiment that I'm not disputing. I'm not disputing that the slits have a width. I'm not disputing that there's a distance from the target. I'm not disputing that there's a wavelength to the fucking goddamn frequency of the light. So how the fuck am I denying the math, you fucking lying piece of shit? Over and over and over again, these fucking lying assertions. Just keep lying, you fucking ballless wimps. Yeah, I didn't say faggots. Oh, man. Sad sack. Fucking garbage, probably. Hey, Gary, Sam Harris just had a discussion with David Benatar. That'll have to wait for another day. But Benatar has lost all balls, too. He's you know, I think he's ready to go on a big book tour or something. I don't know. I mean, he's just afraid to offend anybody. So, you know, frankly, I've always just said, I mean, Benatar's argument is weak. You know, he's got to be a lot more aggressive in pointing out people are assholes and that's why they can't see the truth. Anyway, in the past, you stated that it's possible that force-bit polarization may be that the bits are physically oriented differently. Yes, they're not in alignment with each other. They're traveling on different rails a little bit, and so the further the rails, the more dramatic their polarization. But their polarization can be in any direction. But that's what's causing it, is they're a little bit out of alignment as they travel. The possibility of your jail bar analogy got me thinking, could the force bits be oriented at all angles rather than just two? Well, of course they're oriented at all angles. Yes, they're at all angles. And a certain percentage will be close enough to get through the jail bars. Then only the ones oriented just right would be filtered by the magnet, and all the other non-aligned bits would be irrelevant unless you move the magnet. Well, the charge bits, using the same analogy for charge bits, it isn't that polarization isn't light polarization. The polarization of charge is a different kind of polarization than the polarization of light. As I'm pointing out, the light's polarization just has to do with location. The polarization of charge has to do with the actual shape of the photons. They're either round or square or triangle versus this or arrow versus that. There are two different kinds of ton, and it doesn't have to do with their distance from each other. It would rather filter different bits that are now aligned to its new position. Well, anyway, it's light polarization and the charge polarization that creates the strong force, magnetic force, and ultimate gravity is not the same polarization as the light polarization. So despite an infinite number of bit positions, the magnet only recognizes two given where it is given where it is in space. Is this a possibility? I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying it's not. It's a point I didn't like in my own theory, was figuring out polarization, because I was thinking of light, the photon itself, being polarized, and I realized that that polarization isn't the same as the polarization of the tons, because they're individual tons. So I just don't think it worked as a theory, and it makes better sense to me. That's all I'll say. It makes better sense to me that one polarization, it's like the difference between refraction, diffraction, and interference patterns. they're subtle differences, but they're important differences. They're different phenomenons, and they can do similar things. So this interferometer is creating a pattern that's much like the two-slit experiment, but it has obvious differences, and they're really important differences. So that's my argument to you. Is I don't think so. That's all I'll say. But the fact that geometry and orientation is what this whole thing is, that causes these differences. It's the difference in how you approach something or how you hit something. You hit it on the pointy end versus hitting on the flat end. It's all about some kind of geometry. It's not about any magic powers. Okay. All right, congratulations. How do you think they were trying to find the ether? By measuring the absolute frame. Good God, are you so fucking stupid and dishonest? So I think he's talking to them. Seriously, don't you have discussions with Pirro on this? Didn't you have... you don't even understand what you're discussing. You spout words that you think make sense together. So this is your argument? That's not a fact, by asshole. And what did I have the argument with Pirro about? Somehow that the absolute frame slows light down? What's your argument? Again, this how you compare ether to an absolute frame, I don't understand it. I don't understand how the absolute frame has anything called drag in it. Why would the absolute frame, which is an empty frame that has empty space in it, not bent space in it, there's no bent space in the absolute frame, asshole. So explain to me in a place where there's no bent space, there's no multiverses, there's no place for the photon to get lost anywhere. It travels the speed of light, regardless of anything else. Anything else can be moving any way it wants. The photon always moves exactly the same speed. Explain how there's drag in that circumstance. All those discussions consisted of words strung together. So this isn't an argument. So fuck off. You know, seriously. Make an argument, cite a reference, or fuck off. Oh, he's posted a whole, he's one of these assholes who thinks he's entitled to post endless comments. Let's see. I don't know. We were really talking about an absolute frame that you think is made of ether. Okay. So he says misrepresentation again. How did I misrepresent? That's exactly what the guy's saying. Somehow he's saying Michelson-Morley was a pseudonym for ether discovery, and that's a pseudonym for absolute frame discovery. He made it clear that the ether is the same as the absolute frame. I don't know. These people are just psychotic. You directly respond to somebody's challenge who's basically saying the Michelson-Morley experiment is clearly testing for some kind of absolute frame. Now, even though Michelson-Morley was thinking we're testing for ether, they're just saying that of course it's an absolute frame experiment also somehow, by some magical theory. I haven't heard the theory. How do you get there from here? Show me where Michelson talked on the subject of the absolute frame being discovered. All right, misrepresentation again. I said that in this context, the word ether referred to an absolute frame. In what context? I don't understand how you get to that context. Where is the contextual information that somehow makes a rational argument that ether theory is the same as absolute frame theory, when they're exactly the opposite theory? Clearly. The ether theory is, again, not an absolute frame theory. It's a relative theory. I don't say anything is made of ether. Huh, amazing. You people are just amazing fucking lying sacks of shit. Ether drag, if you read that Wikipedia article, refers to the ether itself being dragged by the earth. Does it matter? You're talking about a moving mechanism. You're talking about the ether is now moving because the earth moved it. You can't understand how your absolute frames can't be dragged, that they can't cause drag to something, and you can't drag the absolute frame. There would be nothing that could possibly drag the absolute frame. It's like I saying I have the heaviest, giganticest mass in the universe, and the other little masses are somehow going to make it move. I mean, no, it wins. It eats them. The biggest Tyrannosaurus eats the little Tyrannosaurus, shithead. It's not the other way around. It doesn't say that the light is dragged. Well, you're still, again, it just doesn't matter. You're saying that somehow the frame moves. The whole point of an absolute frame is it doesn't fucking move. Not inside or in the outside universe or even in the multiverse. The absolute frame doesn't move in the sense that it is slowed down on Earth. God, you people, you're so sick. You're just so fucking sick. Alright, so here we go again. Somehow, quoting that. Read the comment again, fucktard. No, I'm not going to read your nonsense again ever. You're almost done here, you useless sack of shit. I mean, these redundant comments that don't say anything. You don't respond with anything called evidence. Your reply is another irrelevancy. Here we go. The arm that is pointed in the direction of the movement should have a different time of flight, as it was stated. So again, we're back to this nonsensical rubbish that there's a difference in the total time of flight. Total time of flight. So let me put the, let me switch the thing. It's just such bullshit. Maybe it's better just to drop that one down. So we have TTT, total time of flight. Okay, in these two arms. And as I've over and over attempted to point out, there's no possibility of changing the total time of flight in this experiment. So what you have is, okay, you have the emitter. So we'll use this little thing to help understand. So the photon gets emitted. And what's happening is the target is on this moving frame. Alright? So the photon leaves and the moving frame moves a little. So this line ends up going longer before it can hit the moving frame. Right? Now the reflection is instantaneous. So now it's going this way and the frame is moving. And now the target thing is moving. And so this is what you end up with lines. You end up with going this direction is a longer line than this direction. You haven't changed time at all because the longer time you took going this way, so this one went longer time this much, this one went less time this much. These two will obviously be the same amount. And so there's exactly the same as if I just drew the real line and they both went the real line in both directions. So it's exactly the same amount of time total used up. There's the same end result of the photon at the last target. And the only thing that changed is it spent more time going one way than it spent going the other way. But again, you're not comparing this direction to this direction. You're comparing this direction to this direction. You're comparing these two arms, not how much time it spent going this way versus how much time it spent going that way. There is no total time difference. Damn, these people are fucking stupid. And there's no phase difference. It's exactly the same. You don't change the phase of the light by changing which direction it's going in. Anyway, alright, so you are wrong that the photons are traveling the same amount of distance. I'm saying the total distance of this arm is the same as this arm. Oh, I don't have the thing open. The up arm is the same distance as the sideways arm. There's no difference in the arm distance. Obviously, there's more distance traveled in one direction. If we made the photons going half the speed of light, then you could understand that yes, going one direction, it's going to travel twice as much distance in any amount of time. And then coming back the other direction, it's going to be half as much difference. So I can't explain it any simpler. It's just a fact. There's no change in the total time traveled. All right. Anyway, the distance, and this is the most basic thing anyone can even imagine. So I don't even, he thinks this is the most basic thing. I can imagine much more basic things, frankly. When the photon goes forward, the distance gets longer. Yes, for a longer amount of time. Yes, but the total time will be the same, because on the return trip, it's exactly halved. Yes, you could double it going forward, and then you have it going back. If you go 1/4 faster going forward, then you go 1/4 slower coming back. I mean faster. If slower going forward, then you go 1/4 more, less going back. Everything you do in one direction, you'll undo it going the opposite direction. So the effects are multiplied up. No, there's no multiplied effect. You're wrong. Incredibly wrong. You arrogant, wrong person. And the net time distance is more. It doesn't happen. Alright, so Mike Falwell attempts conversation with this imbecile. This is still not making any sense. The physical distance between the emission and the mirror doesn't become physically longer. The whole apparatus is moving as one, and the only way the time of flight could be lengthened would be from the point of the emitting light to it reaching the mirror. Yes, and then on the return trip the whole thing goes backwards. That the whole apparatus shifted faster than the speed of light, so that the light then would spend more time in its flight path. It spends more time going one direction than the other direction because it spends exactly the same proportional amount of time opposite on the return trip. The return trip is just as short as the forward trip is long. Oh, Jesus Christ. The light is passing through quite a lot of glass, which slows down the passage of light. Yeah, well, it's not complex. I don't want to get into that more complexifications. I mean, those are all true, but that doesn't get to this basic point that as you move the target, let me just do it again in the drawing. I mean, just emphasize that it doesn't change the total length of the leg. All you're talking about, again, you're not comparing this to this in the interferometer. This to this doesn't make this thing any different. Now, if it was traveling through maple syrup, it might matter, okay, that the syrup was moving in a direction. So if there's a thing called ether drag, and that is the earth is dragging the ether with it in a direction. So this is going with the flow of the ether, and this is going against the flow of the ether. Then you could argue that this difference in length would create a change in the total length. But if you don't think there's ether, there's just clear sailing for the photon. It goes exactly photon speed and no other speed. Then the argument is just a simple argument. The photon leaves, the target moves away from it. So it takes it longer to get to the target. And then on the return trip, the photon leaves, the target moves into it. So it takes less time to get to the target. But the total time traveled will be exactly equal to the total time traveled for this arm. Shit. Oh, God, I hate this planet. Alright, so let's see. He left a link. Consider the picture in this link. For the forward arm not in motion, it says T equals 2L divided by C. For the forward arm in motion, it says T equals 2L divided by C divided by 1. Okay, so this whenever you see this 1 minus or 1 plus, this is always a gimmick. This is always just an equation thrown into something to stop it from going to infinity. That's all those things ever are. Those are just affinity stoppers. Anyway. The equation, I've given you the model, okay? I've shown you how it actually works, and you can just compare the lines. There's exactly the same proportional impact. The going back line will be just as short as the going forward line is long. You don't need math for that. Again, the math disagrees with you. The fact that the whole apparatus is moving as one should change the time of flight. So he just keeps asserting the same thing. No, total time traveled is the same. If you could make this keep going this way and never have to go back. Oh, I don't have the drawing. I mean, if you can make it to keep going one direction somehow, and somehow make it come back from the other side or circular or do something, then maybe you could have some kind of theory that the travel time is longer because it never gets to the target or something. But the return trip, the fact that you're reflecting it exactly in the opposite direction, so you're exactly moving faster towards the target, means you undo anything that happened in the first event. Congratulations. I did read the link you cited, which does support you, as basically they detected nothing or considerably less than the math predicted. I don't benefit from diagrams as I'm blind, but the text is fine. The math may disagree, but I am more concerned with physicality, and despite dismissing all the real physical mediums and interactions, the photons go through the process of the interferometry that do impede the path of the photons in both arms surely has some bearing on the resulting outcome. Let's see, let's go to this link. I don't think this link will at all be, oh gee, look at this, a bit of history. So it's all writing so far. Let's see. So they're showing some movement. Well, anyway, I've just shown it. This nonsense doesn't mean anything. You don't need to be dividing by C. You don't, in any part of this experiment, just account for the time and the distance. We don't even have to worry about the speed because we know it's a constant. So you don't have to bother with that. So time equals 2L. Time equals 2L. There's no other time change here. So this addition, this dividing time by the square root of this inverted 1 thing again, 1 minus v squared over c squared. Again, that's just an infinity trap. That's just saying there's some sort of proportional slowdown. There is no proportional slowdown. So that's just, that's right there is your explanation of how they use a gimmick in math to fake the results. The light doesn't slow down as it moves in this direction, and this is a slowdown equation. This is saying there's only a proportion of the speed of light that this thing can move at. It's not moving really the speed of light. It's moving a proportion of the speed of light. It doesn't change its speed. So it's just complete crap. Jesus, these people are incredible. Let's go further down here and see if there's any conclusion to this motherfucking cunt bullshit. Okay, I'm more concerned with physicality. Okay, so he's quoting the other guy. Before we talk about lesson number 15, we need to agree on lesson 0. You are not dealing with the argument. So he says, what kind of agrees with the article are you shared in the fact that no motion is detected? No, it doesn't. You don't know why I say that. Because you are arguing for the null result for the wrong reason. Oh, okay, so we can't claim that there's no change. So the experiment finds there's no time, there's no change in the time traveled for both arms. Is the result, and he's saying we believe it for the wrong reason. He thinks there shouldn't be a time change either, but he somehow thinks we're wrong to think so. Amazing. He's going to tell me what my own theory implicates because he's going to create a fake understanding of what an absolute frame is because he thinks absolute frames move. Because you are arguing for the null result for the wrong reason based off faulty math. Again, bullshit. As a result, you don't understand the null result. So amazing. So he's arguing that I point out how there's no time change in the time traveled, and he says, yes, that's the correct answer, but you can't believe that. For your reason, for the reason I explained, for the reason I just drew. I'm not allowed to believe it for that simple reason. Because it's mechanically true. Amazing. He's saying the absolute frame has to be dragged by the earth. Okay, a complete nonsense. One more thing. I reread your comment and realized something interesting. Okay, here we go. Did you read the link I shared? Okay. So he's re-quoting 2 different comments. You literally concede that the math disagrees with you, and then you proceed to talk about why the math would agree with you. The null result is the answer to the correct answer to the equation. There's no change in the path length. The length supports me and doesn't support you for exactly the reasons stated in your first sentence. Oh, these people. Just amazing. Well, this goes on and on and on. Alright, let's see. Do we ever get to an end? Let's see what he says here. Let's go back to the blank slate and restart. We have the simplified apparatus in motion. You say that the time of flight for the photon, for the forward arm, is the same when the apparatus is in motion as it is not. The total travel time is the same. Yes, the time traveled in one direction is more, but the time traveled in the opposite direction is exactly that much less. You say the time of flight of the photon to forward, okay. You say this is because the time for the forward portion is longer while the time for the backward portion is shorter, and the things add up to the original time. Yes, that's exactly right. He said it correctly there. One of your examples demonstrates this reasoning clearly. We can imagine that the stationary case had the photon go 5 seconds plus 5 seconds, and the non-stationary case had the photon go 5.1 seconds and 4.9 seconds. Well, if you're adding two times that are forward and back, exactly correct. Yes, it spent 5.1 seconds going in the forward direction and only spent 4.9 seconds getting back to the original point. So yes, one path was shorter because the thing you were going to, home, moved closer to you. If you drive to work and work is running away from you, right? So you leave your house, but work is running away from you. You have to drive further to get to work. And then when you leave, okay, work is actually, your house is actually running towards you. So now your house is running towards you as fast as it can. And now you're driving home. Yes, your trip home is going to be much shorter than the trip leaving or going to work. But the total time of the trip will be exactly the same as every other day when work wasn't running away and when the house wasn't running towards work. And in either case, the total time is 10 seconds. That's correct. This is your and DraftScience reasoning. I understand it perfectly. Then why are you saying there's a problem? However, when you look at this more closely, no, there's no closer look. That's as close as you can look at it. There's no other closer look. And try to do the math. No, there's no complicated math here. The math is drawn right in the picture. I drew the model. I drew the lines. There's no need to do the math. The fucking model shows what happens, and you can take a ruler out and measure it, and you'll see what happens. You find that it isn't the case. Well, that's just a fucking pile of incredible bullshit. If I measured this precisely, I did what I did on this fucking image board. I'll go back to it just so people aren't following along because they're too stupid. Alright, so I took this model and I'm doing this kind of lazily. But if I did this very precisely, if I moved, this is now the target. This is the emission point. I move the target. Okay, a very consistent speed, and I'll get a consistent time it takes to hit this. And then when I'm going the opposite direction, right, instantaneously it leaves and goes in the opposite direction, and this I'm moving this still exactly the same speed. These two lines will exactly equal the two lines where nothing's moving. That math is solid, you lying son of a bitch. There's nothing unsolid about that math, you fucking piece of shit. To imply there's some math, some rational math that proves that wrong, you're a fucking lying sack of shit to imply it. Bastards. Okay. Let's see. You actually find in the formulas, okay, if you actually try to find the formulas, there's no formulas, okay? There's just a measuring of time. The variables are simple. There's the time, the speed that your target is moving away, and then the speed your target is moving towards you, which is always the same. Okay? There's not too many variables here, jackass. There's nothing to fuck up until you put a fake rationalizing 1 plus the squared of the velocity over c squared. Until you put a fake piece of crap that has nothing to do with the experiment in. When you start saying that somehow something moves slower as it moves in both these directions. You put a fake slowness in. You said it's moving through molasses. It's slowing down. There's some kind of relativity thing happening. No, there's no time dilation with absolute frames, jackass. There's no slowing the light down in your fake, phony, bullshit universe where you claim the speed of light is always consistent, yet in every fucking frame you change its speed. You're the ones changing the speed of light. The absolute frame doesn't change the speed of light. The speed of light is always the same if you believe in absolute frames, you lying sacks of shit. Okay, if you actually try to find the formulas, you will find, okay, there is nothing magical about this. No, there's completely made up, contrived, and a lie. You put a fake piece, where does this, where in this simple model, okay, the model I did, right, we're not on the right page. Where in that simple model is 1 minus v squared over c squared? Where in this model does that variable exist? Where is that variable in that experiment? Where is the variable in my thought experiment of work running away from you and then your house running towards work? Where in that variable, where in that thought experiment is 1 minus v squared over c squared? Where the fuck is that? That isn't in the real universe. That's a fake lie you shoved into it. And then you claim it has some sort of authenticity, like it's a real fucking thing. It's the math, it's the equation. This is an example how they use math to lie, to fucking lie, to create non-existent fucking realities. There is no such thing as 1 minus v squared over c squared. There's no fucking such thing. God damn these liars. So they use this propaganda. Our math is so solid. It's real. It's fantastic. It does amazing things. It builds nuclear bombs. It does everything. It gets us to the moon. When it doesn't. No Einstein math got them to the moon. None of this bullshit is news or necessary. It's all a crock of fucking shit. And this is demonstration of it. The authority of their fucking mathematics when they put a fake variable into the fucking experiment. It doesn't fucking exist. Show me in my model where there is 1 minus v squared over c squared. Show me where it fucking is. There is nothing magical about it. No, you're just liars. Creating fake variables and shoving them into other people's experiments. Pretending I have to accept the existence of your bent space-time. When I'm talking about an absolute frame. You're going to shove your bullshit fucking unicorn crap into my material universe. It just happens that when this works out that way. It just happens that we're lying, propagandizing, dogmatic, religious motherfuckers who will pollute and pervert everything. You'll put fake dinosaur bones into the fucking earth, you know, with Jesus's fucking ring mark in it. You know, because you're just liars and propagandists. You'll fake read people's minds and you'll do all kinds of fucking psychic surgery because you're all fucking liars. Okay, and as a result, your reasoning does not explain the null result. That's it. So that's his fucking argument. I put a fake piece of crap into your fucking model and broke it, and now claim that's why you don't understand, you're wrong. Oh man, what a piece of shitty work you are. Alright. Any comments on being blind? Wait. Alright, so now we know. And here he even writes it right in the comment. Here it is. Okay. It says the beam hits the mirror at time t1, and then later says t1 equals L divided by C times V, which you don't need. Again, there's nothing relevant about the speed. It's a constant. Why would I do C minus V? Then it says the same. Oh, okay, wait a minute. C minus V is relevant. Here it is. Here's the squared. Okay. All right. Then it says the same consideration applies to the backward journey and says T2 equals L divided by C plus V. So there's no really point. You don't need to do. The velocity is constant, so it's just irrelevant to absolutize it. You don't need the constant in this equation because you already know that the time units doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether you call them parsecs or miles or meters. It doesn't matter. We already are agreeing that the speed is consistent. But that's the point. We're not agreeing. then t equals t1 plus t2, and the formula is, see, here it is, t equals 2l, so the distance twice, yes, at the speed of light, divided by, and here we have it, 1 minus v squared over c squared. Why is that in there? Where's this 1 minus thing? Why is this 1 minus exist? This has nothing to do with how long it takes. That slows the light down. All that 1 minus, that right there is a slowdown equation. Because that number is, as I increase the velocity, it makes the number smaller. As I decrease the velocity, it makes the number bigger. And so as soon as you put it in there, because the velocity is a thing, well, it's the speed of light actually, right? So it still doesn't make any sense. It's 1 minus 1. V squared times c squared. The velocity is the speed of light. The velocity is the speed of light. So it's a 1 over 1. It's 1 minus 1. It's 0. You've just blown up your equation, you retard. There's no point. Too stupid. All right. So I guess I'll block this guy eventually. I mean, look, you don't post multiple comments on the same video unless you're replying to somebody. Otherwise, you don't do it. It's rude. He asked why the double slit pattern is not equal to the individual patterns added together. You replied that conventional physics doesn't answer this either. True. The reality is that phase cancellation explains why the patterns is different. So phase cancellation somehow explains why the double slit experiment happens inside the single slit envelope. That's a lie. That's nonsense. And you denied it. Anyone can see the video. I don't know what that means. What video? You reply, 4240, is blatantly false. And the fact that you deleted the comment, which wasn't even rude, shows just how you can't stand to have that pointed out. No, I respond to your comments. I actually read them and respond to them. I actually draw pictures to them. That means I've answered the comment. Now, what do you want me to do? Post a link to this video on your comment? I should go to all your 14 multiple comments in the comment section. I go to each one and reply with a post to this video and a time code. I'm supposed to do all of that nonsense to point out I've responded to your bullshit comment. There, it's done. What's the purpose of your comment if it isn't for me to answer it? I answered your fucking comment. All the viewers see your comment, where they wouldn't even read it in real life. The people who saw the video before you commented didn't even know you commented, jackass. I'm doing your comment a fucking favor. I'm fucking highlighting your motherfucking comment. And then you're complaining because I don't leave an unanswered question on the video implying I can't answer it? I mean, motherfucker, you people are just such fucking weasels. Fuck you. You can't satisfy these pussies. Anyway, your mechanism setup screen. Okay, so he wants to know the software. So I already read that. So we're done. All right. God, I hate these people. My hair's getting thin. People, fucking bastards. I hate your guts. Anyway, until next time.